Well, hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. For this tutorial, this one's kind of taking me back. This takes me back to about 15 years ago when I first started doing cakes, and this was kind of the trend at the time. This is for a quinceanera, and quinceaneras are kind of a little bit more traditional sometimes, and this is kind of a traditional, modern traditional, I would call it, with the quilting and the buttercream rosettes and the separator. So I love this. This is where my beginnings kind of started from. So first of all, we're going to do our quilting for the top tier. The top tier was a 6-inch, and I'm just using, this is, what did I use? Well, they wanted a French blue. So to achieve the French blue, I used the Wilton cornflower mixed with a little bit of ivory. The ivory gives it a little bit of depth and gives it, takes away any brightness or overshadowing of the blue. The French blue is a very muted kind of more ashy blue tone. And when I prefer to do my quilting on a horizontal. If you do it on the cake, you can do it, but you're dealing with any imperfections that might be on the frosting underneath the fondant, and you might not get a good crisp line. And it's just, you can add more pressure to get a better pattern when it's horizontal also. I just feel more in control, I guess, is the main thing there. And I like to do the panel method. So this works out just fine. And you get your crisp edge on the top and you get all your lines. And since I had to do two next to each other, there's going to be a little spot there where the plastic, the edge from the plastic kind of creates a line there. So just go over that little middle piece, line it up, and kind of press in and try to get rid of that line where the first two pieces were. And I set that to the side to firm up for a good, 20 minutes. Since you're not worrying about the upper edge and wrapping the fondant over that edge, it's not going to rip and tear. So don't worry so much about that. We're going to go ahead and frost our middle tier. This was an 8-inch. And this one is just plain white, and then there's going to be that plaque. And I'm going to show you how to easily make a monogram. If you're not real good at freehanding, which I am not, when it comes to lettering, I find this trick is really handy. And I can't claim it. I actually got it from Tracy from Little Cherry Cake Company. She's the one that I saw do this, and it works out great. But I want to give credit where credit is due. And that cake is frosted, and that's in the freezer for 10 minutes to firm up. And while we're doing that, I went ahead and I took out my top tier that was already frosted. And then I put the top piece on top, turned it upside down. Then I picked up the frosting, the wrap part, and just kind of gingerly wrap it around. This is one of those times when don't overthink it. You just pick it up and move it quickly. And since it's upside down, your top edge is going to be crisp as long as it meets the board on the bottom. When you turn it right side up again, it'll be fine. And then I cut off the excess off the bottom. This is really, I find, the best way to get a perfectly frosted cake with fondant. And then turn it right side up again and just make sure that piece on the side and the top piece are met up together. You can do a little bit of water around that edge of the fondant on the top, just to make sure that your fondant on the sides doesn't droop down. And I like to use shortening on the sides. And here I'm showing you this tool. I've never used this tool before. It's a dragé gun, I think is what it's called. And it works out really, really well. And I did go ahead and I put some indentations with a ball tool just to make sure that they stuck. And there was a little bit of condensation, so I didn't have to add water, but you can if your dragés aren't wanting to stick. And this gun is great. Look at that. I'm sold. I'm absolutely sold on this. I don't think I'll go back unless I can't find that gun. And now we're going to make our separator. I had cut a piece of cake board to the size of my rounds, my foam rounds there, a little bit under the size of that. And then I glued two of them together, and they were 4-inch rounds. And then I just rolled out a piece of fondant, and it was perfectly 2 inches tall. So I just used my strip cutter at 2 inches. I put a little bit of piping gel on the foam and just wrapping it right around with that fondant. Really pretty easy. And cut off your excess. And this is for the gems, the strips of gems. I would prefer to put it on fondant. I think it sticks a little better. You don't have to. You can attach it right to the foam, but you can kind of see through those gems. And to me, that looks unfinished. So I like to go ahead and wrap it with a fondant, especially since it's two pieces together. You don't want to see that line where the two pieces are glued together. And I just glued it together with hot glue. And now I'm putting a little bit more of the piping gel on the fondant on top. And that is what the gem strips are going to stick to. You could use hot glue if you want to. But I find this works out just fine. Just make sure that you get the whole thing covered. Not the top or the bottom, but just the sides. And then I had already cut out the strips so that they were the perfect size. And one piece was not quite tall enough, so I cut another strip off to the correct height and just added the two together. And you can't even really tell where the two meet. Sorry, it's a little out of frame there. I didn't realize that, but I think you get the idea. You guys are smart. You know what I did there. Really out of frame. Sorry, could have cut this part out. And there it is, all done. And I just set that to the side after smoothing it down, making sure it's stuck real good, to dry. This was a 2-day process. I think this whole cake took me 2 days. So, some things were done a little ahead of time like that so that it could firm up. And then I am just adding my supports to the bottom tier that is already crumb coated. And I do a row of the thicker plastic dowels around the outside, 5 of them, and then I did 5 of your regular bubble tea straws slightly inside of that outside circle. And then fill in your gap in between the tiers, and that top tier, that tier that I just put on there, that was chilled, so I could lift it right on there. Then I found a cutter the same size as the separator and added some support underneath there. And then I just pounded in a sharpened dowel right through the middle. Now to do our rosettes, this is an ombre rosette, and it's the same colors, the Wilton cornflower with a little bit of ivory. And I started with my darker color on the bottom. And you just gently apply pressure in a circular pattern. And then I like to drag that final piece up a little bit so that when you do your next rosette, it covers that up and it seems more seamless that way. Now, while you're watching me do this, I want to explain. I start with that darker color. I make a little more than I need. And then when I get my first row done, you just add a little bit of white to what you have left over and a little bit of ivory if you need it. If the white makes it a little too bright and you want to still have that more of an ashy undertone, add a just tiny bit of ivory. And then you do the same thing with your next row. You just need to make sure that you have just a little bit more than you need for each row so that you can get a seamless ombre effect without changing tonal values. And this is how I'm going to do my monogram. I'm using some tracing paper, some gum paste, and I'm just rolling out that gum paste to about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch thickness. And this is the plaque that I knew I was going to use, so I cut it down a little bit. And then I found a monogram on my phone. You can do this on your laptop too. Just use your tracing paper to outline it. I had to be careful because I kept touching my screen and it was moving on me. But it can be done. And then just fill in your monogram on the back side, the reversed side. Because when you flip it back over onto your gum paste, it's going to be in the right direction. Just make sure you're doing that. You fill it in with your graphite pencil on the back side, the reverse side. See how it's backwards? And don't worry about graphite on the cake because these pencils are not made out of lead. Lead is what is poisonous. Graphite is not. So you're going to be just fine. And then trace over your monogram centered on that fondant. And there we have our outline. It's so much easier this way, guys. And I placed it on the cake and I had cut out a pearl border just to go around the monogram. And I just attach that with a little bit of water. And just kind of arrange it the way you want it. And then I'm going in with a fine-tipped brush. And I'm using the combination of gold luster dust and Everclear and just tracing that outline. Then I use the same paint for the pearl border around the plaque. Now this technique is my favorite way to do a monogram. I find that it's about as perfect as you're going to get. It takes a little bit more time, but I am not a good freehand painter or drawer. I can't. So this works really well for me. Then I put a gold sparkle ribbon around the bottom, and then I attach the top tier with a little bit of buttercream. Now she was going to deliver, my boss was going to deliver this cake without the top on it. She was going to apply that at the venue, but for the video purposes, I just attached it with some buttercream, and I'm adding some gum paste roses that I had made. I just did another video on gum paste roses. I've shown a couple times, so I figured I can attach a link to that video. Then I added some silk flowers and then some gold butterflies that I just attached with just some buttercream. And I was going to add, if you were to need to add support to this cake as it is with the separator, I would use probably 2 to 3 smaller dowels, you know, pounded right through the top, not in the middle because you already have that skewer in the middle, but around that to anchor it to your foam and then fill in the holes in the top. That's how I would do that. And these butterflies are not edible. The silk flowers are not edible, and the butterflies are not edible. You just need to communicate with your customers when you have non-edible elements on a cake so that they know when they serve it to take those pieces off. Communication, you got to communicate with people. You don't always have time, and there's not always the budget on the customer's end for everything edible, because everything edible takes time. So I would have preferred to do all the flowers with sugar, but they didn't have the budget, so we just added some silk. And I think it turned out gorgeous, of course. I think I always say that, but I wouldn't publish something I didn't like. I hope you liked it as well, and I hope I helped you if you had any questions. And we'll catch you next time, guys.
So thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch my video. And if you'd like to watch some other videos, go ahead and click on the link to one of these other videos shown here. And if you would like to check out my other social media, I am on Facebook and Instagram under the same name, Sophisticakes by Mary. And please take the time to share, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you know when I upload another video. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next tutorial.